Nicole Miera. Hello, my name is Nicole Miera, Project Director at the Center for Tribal and Indigenous Engagement at Keystone Policy Center. We are a third-party nonprofit consultant hired by the U.S. Department of Justice to support its discussions with NTUA about improving wastewater treatment systems in Chinle, Kayenta, Tuba City, and surrounding communities. Please note, I am not a spokesperson for any of the agencies involved in this effort. I will be delivering a webinar-style presentation that covers information pertaining to the settlement with US DOJ and NTUA. Please give me a moment as I queue up the slides. Great, thank you. So in this webinar is really in an effort to inform Tuba City, Coal Mine Canyon, and surrounding communities that US DOJ is currently seeking public comment for the partial consent decree pertaining to wastewater improvements in your communities. The public comment does not apply to individual septic tanks not owned and operated by NTUA, and US DOJ is not seeking comments on individual septic tanks as a part of this comment process. It is also important to note that NTUA has already begun working on some of the improvements that we will be discussing in this webinar. So, information that we'll be covering today will start with the basics on wastewater and sanitary sewer overflows, what's going on and why we're here. Really, we are reaching out to your communities to inform you on an important update regarding the settlement process between US DOJ, US EPA, and NTUA. As many of you are aware, the wastewater treatment plants serving these communities are old. Under the Clean Water Act, these facilities have not been able to meet minimum permitting requirements for treatment before discharge into the washes, which essentially flow back into your communities. US EPA and US DOJ are working now with NTUA and their counterparts at Navajo Nation EPA and Navajo Nation DOJ to try and solve these problems. This is so NTUA can comply with its permits by improving wastewater treatment and discharge and repairing or replacing sewers to eliminate sewage spills. We will be discussing what work has been done so far, the settlement process. So at this stage, this effort is in the settlement process, which essentially means that this is a resolution between disputing parties about the legal case. In this case, about NTUA adhering and following requirements of the Clean Water Act, which brings us to where we are now, US DOJ's open public comment period. All disputing parties want to ensure that your community has input and recommendations on how to improve wastewater in your community. The community will have until March 8th to comment, and we realize this is a short time frame to get community input into US DOJ, but these are your communities. It's vital that US DOJ hear from you. This is where we come in and why we're trying to get the word out to community members like yourself. So we'll start out by covering the basics of wastewater, sanitary sewer overflows, and systems in your community. So as you can see here, wastewater is essentially water that comes from the home or business and flows into the public sewer main here, which essentially ends in transporting into a wastewater treatment plant. So, as you can see here, wastewater is the water that's essentially flushed down or goes down your drain into the sewer system. It can include water from showers, bathtubs, sinks, toilets, washing machines, and drains. The wastewater we are discussing today does not pertain to individual septic tanks. We are only discussing wastewater that goes into NTUA's sewage system. Wastewater contains substances such as food, scraps, human waste, oils, soaps, various chemicals, and other substances. So as we're looking at what a sanitary sewer overflow is, essentially sanitary sewers collect and transport domestic, commercial, and industrial wastewater, limited amounts of stormwater, and unfiltered groundwater to treatment facilities for required treatment. Occasionally, sanitary sewers can overflow and will release raw sewage. These types of releases are called sanitary sewer overflows, also known as SSOs. So SSOs can contaminate our waters by causing serious water quality problems, backing up into homes, causing property damage, and even threatening public health. So many homes, businesses, and municipal buildings send sewage to sewers in these communities. There are many pollutants in raw sewage, including bacteria and ammonia in human waste. So when sewer lines break, get plugged, or overflow during monsoon season, raw sewage can escape the sewers. So raw sewage can make people and animals sick if they come into contact with it. And it can also pollute the environment. So here we see a picture, and you can see here there are different levels of an SSO, from very minor to very large. And they frequently occur at sewer manholes, which you see here. All SSOs should be reported to NTUA immediately, and you can report any SSOs to NTUA directly. All the numbers here are below, including emergency numbers. SSOs, there are a number of causes they can include, but they're not limited to blockages from inappropriate materials sent to the sewer, like fats, oils, grease, household products, tree roots. They can also result from line breaks, sewer defects that allow stormwater and groundwater to overload the system, and sometimes even power failures can lead to backups. So what does the system look like in Tuba City currently? So as you see here, this is currently the Tuba City Lagoon that sits in Curly Valley. And as mentioned before, the wastewater treatment plants in these communities are old and for many years have not met minimum requirements for treatment of wastewater before discharge into the near bywashes. And so that is a significant concern. So the sewers that collect wastewater and send it to these plants are also old, and any sewage spills that occur really must be addressed immediately. So here you can see the various cells. This is where the wastewater is treated for Tuba City, Coal Mine Canyon, and surrounding communities and released back into the wash. So as we look at future systems and community benefits, here you'll see a picture of one of the newer facilities located in Window Rock. Future facilities will look similar to this facility, and the purpose of improving these wastewater treatment facilities is to remove as much of the suspended solids as possible before the remaining water, called effluent, is discharged back into the environment and washes. So why are we here? So the United States is working with Navajo Nation counterparts to support NTUA's effort to come into compliance with its Clean Water Act permits by improving wastewater treatment and repairing or replacing sewer lines to eliminate sewage spills. This outreach will help US EPA and US DOJ understand community concerns as it works with NTUA. So really the purpose and goals for community engagement is to really inform the community of the efforts to improve NTUA's handling of wastewater and sewage spills in your communities, and to learn community concerns regarding NTUA's wastewater collection, the treatment, discharge, and in this community particular, the facility siting, to ensure community voice is incorporated into the partial consent decree. So as we look at what communities are involved, again, it's the Tuba City, Kayenta, Chinle, and surrounding communities that are served by these wastewater treatment facilities. So looking at who's involved in this process, there are 5 federal and tribal organizations working to find solutions to these problems. You have NTUA, who owns, operates, and maintains the wastewater treatment plants and sewers in Tuba City, Kayenta, and Chinle. NTUA must operate and maintain its plants and sewers in compliance with Clean Water Act permits issued by US EPA. You have US DOJ, who facilitates the efforts of the 5 federal tribal organizations so they can understand the problems, explore possible solutions, find common ground, document agreements, and propose them to a federal court. You have US EPA, who works in partnership with Navajo Nation EPA, issues Clean Water Act permits to NTUA, monitors NTUA's compliance under the Act and these permits, provides grants to NTUA to construct new plants and sewers, and coordinates grant funding with other federal agencies. You also have Navajo Nation EPA, who works in partnership with US EPA, monitors NTUA's compliance with the Navajo Nation Clean Water Act and regulations, coordinates with US EPA to conduct inspections of the plants to determine compliance with their Clean Water Act permit, ensures that NTUA's training and certification requirements for wastewater operators are consistent with Navajo Nation EPA's requirements, requires plant operators to be certified as to their level of expertise in running the plant, and maintains a website that provides the public with information about wastewater collection and treatment. You also have Navajo Nation DOJ, who advises Navajo Nation EPA on compliance issues under federal and Navajo Nation Clean Water Act, partners with US DOJ to identify and address barriers to NTUA's compliance. And finally, you have Keystone Policy Center for Tribal and Indigenous Engagement, who does not represent a federal or tribal entity, who serves as a nonprofit, non-advocacy consultant to the US DOJ, which conducts community outreach and engagement, shares community insights and recommendations to the US government that are gathered during outreach and engagement. So, as we look ahead at what work is being done to make improvements, we can see here that in the short term, there will need to be improvement to current treatment plants. We'll need to build new treatment plants and study the sewer systems and plan repairs. In this graphic, you'll actually see NTUA collection system in Tuba City. So these green lines represent the sewage system in Tuba City. So really in the short term, NTUA is going to need to make the treatment plants more effective. They're going to need to study the conditions of existing sewers in the community and figure out where repairs are needed to avoid future spills. And upcoming sections will elaborate more on the agreed upon improvements. So here you'll see community involvement to this point. Community involvement started in the spring of 2023 with discussions with elders in senior centers, site visits to NTUA facilities in each of the community, and initial community outreach. In summer of 2023, we began outreach to chapter house officials, township officials, community members that were directly impacted, and any other additional community engagement. Which brings us to where we are today, early 2024, the public comment on proposed solutions to NTUA's wastewater collection treatment problems. So as we look at the settlement process, we'll really be looking at, looking at the partial consent decree, what a partial consent decree is, NTUA compliance plan overview, compliance plan timeline, budgeting and planning, collection systems, management of wastewater treatment plants, and looking at the opportunity for public to submit comments on to NTUA and DOJ on certain draft reports NTUA creates for the partial consent decree. So as we look, what is a partial consent decree? Essentially, a partial consent decree is a framework and plan for compliance that everyone agrees upon. So consent, it's agreed upon by NTUA and the United States. The decree contains requirements that are approved and enforceable by a federal judge. And partial does not fully solve all compliance problems, but it does include a plan and a timeline to fully comply and solve these problems. So essentially, a partial consent decree is an obligation to do the work and ensures compliance and is lodged in a federal district court. So as you can see here, again, NTUA compliance plan overview in the short term is to upgrade existing lagoon treatment plants to reduce pollutants in treated wastewater that essentially flow back into the washes, improve operation and maintenance of existing wastewater treatment plants, study the sewer system, and plan for its repair. In the long term, there will need to be construction of new treatment plants to fully comply with Clean Water Act permit, decommissioning of old plants, and repairing sewer systems in the communities to reduce sewage spills, overflows, and backups. So as you can see here, my apologies. As you can see here, there is a rough timeline that goes from April of 2025 all the way to early 2028 that starts with the upgrading of existing treatment plants to decommissioning of plants. A plan has to be submitted before wastewater treatment plants can be decommissioned. There will be a complete sewer system evaluation survey done, construction of new treatment plants, and repair and plan for repairing sewer system defects in the communities. As far as NTUA's budget and planning goes, this is a part of the consent decree that really spells out how NTUA will budget and spend their funding on and budget on future efforts. Submission of a capital improvement plan, also called a CIP, identifies projects, plans, and finances all capital improvement needs for current and future facilities within a 5-year period. This CIP will need to be submitted annually. Submission of annual budgets on operation and maintenance will also be included in this. Evaluation whether projected wastewater revenues are sufficient to fund the required improvements. So as we look at NTUA's collection systems, the sanitary sewer plan includes establishing a procedure for response, cleanup, and minimizing impacts of sanitary sewer overflows, reporting location, volume, cause, and impact of all SSOs to EPA, notifying potentially impacted public and community members of SSOs. You also have sewer system evaluation surveys. NTUA is required to do an evaluation of each community's collection system. You also have sanitary system evaluation survey work plan and reports. The plan will cover anticipated activities, implementation schedules, compliance dates, and work to be performed. The report will summarize the findings after the study is complete. There will also be a plan for collection system repair, rehabilitation, and replacement. A proposed plan and timeline for repairing all sewer system defects will be identified in the evaluation survey. So management of NTUA's wastewater treatment plants. The consent decree requires various operation and maintenance improvements for the existing, upgraded, and replacement treatment plants. So NTUA must retain expert consultants to provide technical guidance for proper operation and maintenance of plants, update the operation and manuals for both upgraded and the eventual replacement plants, train all treatment plant operators on proper operation and maintenance of the plants, and demonstrate that all facility operators are properly certified, as well as conduct annual pay and compensation surveys and make sure and make adjustments necessary to recruit and retain properly certified operators. as well as regularly report its inspections and operation and maintenance activities to EPA. This decree also requires NTUA to create and implement a comprehensive asset management program. By using asset management software to create an inventory of all critical assets, automate work order production and tracking, and catalog routine maintenance. NTUA will need to acquire and maintain an inventory of all critical assets so it can immediately conduct repairs without being delayed by backordered parts or supply chain disruptions. So, public comment on specific deliverables. The partial consent decree requires NTUA to solicit comment from the community on certain draft deliverables. That includes the sanitary sewer overflow response plan, the sanitary sewer evaluation study work plan, a plan for collection system repair, rehabilitation, and replacement, decommissioning for the wastewater treatment plants, and sludge assessment reports and management for wastewater treatment plants. NTUA notification to the public will be through the NTUA website and social media pages. You can subscribe to be notified of future comment periods from NTUA on their website by clicking on the red tile that says NTUA sewer related plans. You'll also find the link here on this slide. So, public comment on the partial consent decree for this effort will be going directly to the U.S. Department of Justice, and they are currently seeking and accepting public comment on the partial consent decree. The preferred method of submitting comment is through email at pubcomment.eens.enrd@usdoj.gov. In the subject line, they're asking that you please include Navajo Tribal Utility Authority. And as mentioned before, the public comment is one of the most important aspects of this effort. It's important to all entities that each community have input and voice into this partial consent decree on the various aspects that we have discussed today. For more information, you can find links and phone numbers to all of the entities involved here. Thank you. We respectfully thank you for your time and for sharing your thoughts and concerns and ideas. You can also find more information in the YouTube comment section below, and links to the Federal Register, links to the community information packets, as well as the full partial consent decree as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at nmiera@keystone.org or 303-246-5549.